J-Team, Deep Cross Gaming. But Deep Cross is going to be Frank fans this game for sure.
Obviously, everyone wants to be at least the second best J-Team now that the original J-Team has come out and locked in their slot.
They claim the title.
I guess I'm not too surprised.
What a saga.
Yeah.
What a saga it's been, this split. I mean, we've really had quite a rotation. Like, looking back on this split, as this is the last game of the regular season, we will have a tiebreaker one way or the other. Like, it is incredible to think, like, where we all started. Like, PSG opened the split with a loss. We wondered, is the era of dominance over? Is it no longer going to happen without Maple and River? These new squads, Deep Cross showing up, deleting J-Team in game one, showing off the swag with all of their, the dog tags of when they were on the J-Team roster. CFO finding a dominating streak in the early part of the split, and Atlan showing up, and all these other teams really finding their place. But things have settled into an interesting pattern. It's not entirely familiar. There's a lot more competition up at the top, but at the very tippity top, it is PSG Talent again. So it's certainly been a spring split to remember.
I wholeheartedly agree with that assessment. This split has just been so weird because I feel like the lessons that each team is teaching us is so different. Like, for CFO, the clear lesson was laning strength just isn't enough to rely on solely. At the start of the split, when most of the rest of the field hadn't gelled together as a 5v5 team, CFO was hands down just the best squad over because they had the most notable raw talent. But as the split went on and most of the teams found their identity, knew where to improve, CFO steadily fell behind. We just didn't see a very strong understanding of what their compositions were supposed to do. They didn't react to enemy comps well, and they often fell into the trap of relying too much on laning phase and not having enough teamfight prowess to get them through the games. I feel like CFO, even at the end of the split, they didn't really come back from this fault. I feel like this draft is a little bit of a head scratcher, and especially from the top lane position. And, the best wins that CFO has still managed to pull off, especially against PSG, has just been lane dominance. So I'm not sure CFO have actually, picked up the right lessons here or what their playoff run will look like, but they definitely need to showcase more of an understanding of a 5v5 grouping together. Koala needs to step up for sure. Rest needs to have a more stable identity on what he's doing on this team. That being said, though, they still are the heavy favorites going up against Kurt and Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. Kurt and Frank, there we go. There's our nickname for the squad. Frank Esports have, they've had a very interesting story as well because, we look back to the beginning of the split, and this was a team that got put together at the last minute. They got Pretender, previously known as Kana, over from the PSG bench to give him some experience. He has definitely been a highlight of this team as he goes in and gets a bit of a trade on, already a little bit low against Mission. But this team has taken a while to find their identity as well because they didn't have a lot of time together, and I think they finally found it, right? I mean, Eminem and Pretender certainly are the big carries. Holo, in this game, he possibly going to be rolling off as well, but he's been a little bit more of an engager. Kurt's been more utility. K2 has kind of been there to do a little bit of everything, and Frank have managed to honestly scrape together a very respectable record, as that's a nice charm combo. Mission going to be zoned out of lane there.
Yep.
Maybe not quite.
Throughout all of those trades, it was consistently Mission that was chucking more potions. So even though the HP bars might look like Pretender was behind, Mission actually was losing out a little bit on the sustained field. And that is going to be pretty massive here, as Pretender will get that level 6 roam. Victor can't really follow the Ahri around the map. So there is potential for playmaking there, especially in the bottom side. That's where I would see a potential for Frank Esports to really throw all of their marbles.
There's Gemini on the level 3 gank. No ward coverage. We'll see how safe they can play this. It's going to be a bit of a wraparound. Actually, might just be going for a bit of counter jungling. Well, we'll see. K2 should spot this out on the Krugs, and the game is up.
I don't really see a dive potential incoming right here, so just should be some counter jungle like you mentioned, and some tower taking. Eminem already hitting level 3 makes that dive pretty much nigh impossible at this point.
Yeah.
So they're just going to back
mid.
off.
Let's see if Pretender can bait this one out. Not going to be the easiest.
The way this
Diego on 4. Ooh, if they landed the charm, that's a difference. Now Gemini and Koala coming up to mid lane. Things flying quickly, and Pretender is going to back away. They do get the stun into a combo, but they stayed a little bit longer than they should have. Forces the flash out, and Holo says, whew, that was close.
Yeah, big win right here, and Gemini is going to catch Holo out again. Gets the drop.
Oh dear. He did not expect that one. The Ruined King getting a little ruined on that. Now, meanwhile, Kurt going in onto rest. Level 6 for the engage trade, but he runs out of steam pretty quickly. I think he might have miscalculated on that. Let's see if he can keep this going. No, into the minion wave tack sweep. And that's going to be the end of it. Kurt, got to be careful there, buddy.
Yeah, he didn't really have the tactical sweep prepared right there. And Rest, even though he takes a stun to the face, he's so far behind his own minion line, he actually gets a lot of trading power from those ranged minions there as well. And he's also able to kite away through most of the auto attacks just with the fleet footwork. So, unfortunately, even though Kurt started that trade, he actually ends up a lot worse for it. Before that, he was almost even on CS, but afterwards, you can tell it's getting pushed back complete to his own tower.
Oh yeah, Kurt stays in lane here to try and finish off the minion wave, but not having a great time. Rest should be the one to hit level 6 there, so he can breathe a sigh of relief that this lane's not going too shabby for him. Check in with the state of the rest of it. Gold leads for CFO, as expected. Tender, a little bit of damage taken there, and Olo wrapping around. There's the Harrowed Path, and into the stun, the combo. He's got no mana and forced to flash away.
Wow, what a great find through the minion wave right there. Able to tag Mission out with the stun, with the Spectral Maw. But Pretender's getting really low.
Okay, they split, but that's the stun, the flash, the follow. Gemini secures himself first blood, was looking for more. Frank, they stayed a little too long, a little too greedy.
And Kurt did not manage to finish his TP right here. He actually gets stopped by Rest, so again, Rest, this is going to be a massive win and most likely going to result into a turret plate as Kurt does have to walk back, or at least Holo will have to help him reset here.
Yeah, Rest is doing a great job at just keeping this one in line. Kurt going to be backing now, but he's going to be losing a lot of plates on the tower. So that's a big ups here as CFO. You know, their strategy, lane dominance, well, it's working. It's at least working up there, and it looks like they're ahead in the bot too.
It always feels bad to kind of lose lane this hard, just small tricks by the enemy opponent. That was just kind of a smoke screen into a delayed back, and he gets a free turret plating. Oh, it doesn't get the turret plating, but it gets very close to it off of that. And I do want to remind everyone that top lane, in my eyes, is the most important lane for CFO to work. If Graves doesn't push, he really doesn't contribute that much to the rest of the entire team, and he also allows Camille to roam across the map and create picks if he doesn't win the lane. So Rest has to stay on top of this 24/7. I do expect Gemini to actually shadow this lane quite frequently whenever it's pushing out.
For the time being, he's shadowing on the mid and looking for another opening, but Pretender, see if he takes the bait. Wow. No, the long range Q does result in a point-blank charms. Pretender zones away. He's forced to use an ult charge to make it happen, though, and Holo finally on level 6 has access to the Heartbreaker.
Channeling.
Looking for Gemini himself. Oh, he misses, tries to predict out on the Spectral Maw, and Gemini just holds the line.
A pretty cool move by Holo. He charges a Spectral Maw before he even gets vision of Gemini, and here we go again.
Okay. That's going to be the 3v3 right now into the Chaos Storm, but Pretender opens up hostilities as they manage to take down 2, and it's Pretender that picks up all the gold. Nice collapse there from Frank Esports.
Great stuff coming in from K2. CFO were shoving in the minion wave in the bottom side, but their mistake was assuming that K2 would be their bot lane as well. He didn't need to be there. He was already roaming top lane. And CFO, after chunking out Holo, just got a little bit too complacent. Pretender, also, you have to remember this, can leave lane, and Mission cannot follow. He cannot go and face check against a charm. So, Frank Esports win out huge on the skirmish right here, and that is going to be very detrimental, as a fed Ahri going towards the top lane could mean that Rest just can't push as hard anymore.
Yeah, Pretender has definitely been one of the better players when he gets his hands on this type of champion. Really love to see his development as a player, and it's going to be trouble for CFO. Even though Kurt has been struggling a little bit in this top side, Olo's going to be coming here for some relief. That is going to be a control ward, spotting it out, so he'll stay safe. But I wouldn't be too surprised if we see a Pretender roam up top. Meanwhile, though, Eminem has got to contend with the push from Shun and Koala that has been pretty relentless, and it's going to finally result in a turret plate.
Yeah, this is what we expect out of the Xayah versus Jinx matchup. You get the serrated Dirk power spike right there, do a lot more damage. You also start building in the tier, so you can constantly just throw out your Qs. It's been very powerful of a build here, and you know, I've been really surprised, but Xayah has actually taken over in priority compared to something like Aphelios, which has been a mainstay in the meta for such a long time.
And hey, you know what? Shun's played 4 games now of Xayah, 0 games of Aphelios.
Yeah.
Guess how many Aphelios games Atlan has?
7, I think.
Yes, you are correct. Ooh. Congratulations.
Yeah, he does play a lot of Aphelios. I think that's the main issue with Atlan is that he's not great on the Jinx necessarily.
Ooh, okay. All right, that's going to be the smite down. And can they get him out there? Gemini going to get locked up in the Hextech Ultimatum. So Kurt's utility comes up huge as Holo claims the kill. Oh, no, and Rest is going to give away the double kill here. Ooh, what a massive turn for Frank. They may have given up the Herald, but they do get Holo a double kill.
Yeah, and that's absolutely massive here because there are a lot of assists going over to Kurt. He didn't die there. Rest gives up his life, loses his flash, and now the top side is squarely in Frank Esports' favor. That just means no more pushing for you, Rest, and we get to decide when these fights happen. So we're going to watch this again. It was a good move by Gemini, but unfortunately you just can't get away from Camille. There's nothing you can do in this situation. Rest, I think, overstays his welcome. He still had collateral damage. He wanted to put a little bit more onto Gemini's attackers. He should have just let Gemini die.
Yeah, I think he should have. He also, it looks like he was on the wrong side of the Blast Cone too, but he was already nailed by the Charm. Backtimers do mean that CFO can start off on this first dragon. A bit of a late start. We had a lot of spicy dragons this game, or this day of play, I should say. It looks like Cloud Rift isn't going to be on the table as this is the first one. Does get secured there. Rocket kind of sniffs forward a little bit. Eminem is looking. Meanwhile, in the mid, Pretender's sitting right in the middle of a Chaos Storm and Mission trying to chase him down. He should be able to walk away from it, though.
Oh, the second explosion of the Death Ray doesn't land right there, and Mission is willing to play super aggressive. He knows that the Spirit Rush is down. And meanwhile, we do get a full charge onto the bottom side here.
Yeah, they're looking to open up first brick, I think.
Yeah, they could defend this quite easily.
They will. All the plates taken at least, but you know, that's kind of what you have to hope for at the least if you're CFO, try to get something back for that Herald. But the game's definitely swung in terms of tempo and gold as well. Frank with a 500 gold advantage off those skirmishes they managed to get for themselves, and he carries with the kills. Kurt going to have a much better game at this point, and Holo just completes the Divine Sunderer.
Oh boy, that's before 12 minutes Divine Sunder. I feel like Rest is just a sitting duck here. Like, once Holo gets to the scene, Rest is just kind of dead, so he can't overpush without getting vision into the jungle at this point.
They're pinging it.
The question is, the pinks are from Frank. I don't think Rest plans on doing much about this.
I think we got a dive coming. All right, they're gonna see this. Okay, back away.
Yeah,
but it's happening. Rest days are numbered.
Yeah, there's not much he can do in this lane. It's a very unfortunate scenario. He actually played his laning phase super well. It's just small fundamentals that allowed him to kind of outplay his opponent in this situation, get the extra backs in. He will be sitting on a Mythic here, but like we've just seen, whenever Pretender roams top lane, there's not much you can do. I feel like CFO's strategy now has to shift towards Shun, and getting Shun just as massively fed ahead as possible.
He's a bit blind right now, and does use the Featherstorm, but nowhere to go. Isolated here. That's going to be the flash and hit into the cleanse, but Shun is walking away. Zenith Blade comes right back up. Full investment to get this Xayah, and Eminem is going to claim that one up.
I love what K2 was doing right there. He was inching in and trying to detect where the vision actually was. You could see him in around the Tri-Brush area. He just walked forward a little bit, and he was paying attention to Shun if he would react. And once he saw that Shun didn't do anything, he knew that there wasn't vision. So it was kind of like using your own presence as a scryer to kind of detect if there was actually if you were being spotted. And, you know, he was able to do the full loop around, lull Shun into a false sense of security, and they might be able to even take first break before Rest in this one.
Meanwhile, in the mid lane, we got a spicy play here. In comes Koala, does get one knock up on this one. Kirk gonna be moved away, and just in time to Gemini to kick back, and everybody's hitting the ringers and the ropes as Mission opens up onto Kurt, but they answer back onto Gemini right away. Rest is gonna be able to get first brick, as Eminem was forced to back away. Does get a Gale Force for his troubles, though, and woo! We've had some fights this day.
Yeah, I would say that this is a fairly even fight, but Pretender, once again, is just running away with the kills in this situation. Kurt for them doesn't matter as much. Kurt is just kind of you take your towers and you're fine. But CFO in the meantime, they will take more immediate gold because of both of these side lane towers. Frank Esports, I'm sure that they wanted a little bit more out of that fight. They definitely were expecting to try and get at least 2 kills and snowball more off of this tower. But CFO were in position already to counter here. Really nicely done on the side of Gemini to make sure that Kurt wasn't going to escape that play. He also just disables the Hextech ultimatum by kicking Kurt outside of his own ultimate.
Yeah, it was a really nice move by Gemini. It still ends up being a 1-for-1 trade, but Frank Esports getting something out of it, even if it wasn't all that they wanted. Not being able to knock out any towers just yet, as the side lanes are open for CFO. So let's see what they can make do here, as you have Eminem and K2 on defense mode for the mid. Holo coming in. Channeling on the Spectral Maw doesn't quite find anything here, as Shun and Koala are playing pretty safe.
A lot of abilities used right there. The ultimate even dropped here. And this is kind of the problem with your prior plays, is that Rest has a solid lead. Up. Ooh. That still does hurt quite a lot. He even dropped
Pretenders, he wants that kill. He's smelling it. Yeah, Rest has got to back up. Oh, the rocket. Hey, you know what, Eminem, you got to try. There have been so many cross-map rockets today. I respect it.
Kurt is in such an awkward spot because he just can't leave his lane at this point. So they have to swap Pretender into Rest. And because Kurt just died on the previous gank, I think he gave up most of his early game lead. So he's really far behind at this point. And Mission, one thing about Mission's play is that he's very willing to split push on mages. So we could see a situation where I feel like Frank Esports, they need to be... They're going to be losing out on tempo on a lot of these trades just because it's 2 split push lanes versus 1.
Yeah, you could see it right there, an inner versus an outer. At least Frank gets some standing gold, but they lose out a lot of map control as well, as it's just a absolute Christmas tree worth of lights down there for CFO. In Frank Esports jungle allows them to continue their Drake stack easily. Holo can flip this on the Herald at least, but still, we got ourselves another Mountain Rift as well.
Yeah, so the dynamics in the early game is like, I feel like each team got what they wanted out, a fed Pretender, but Rest still in control of the side lane split push. So what this means basically is that CFO, they will continue to just play 4-1 completely. They have very good wave clear in the mid lane. So if they sit 4-man mid, I don't really see Frank having a good opportunity to engage on them because Camille is going to get tied up by Rest. I feel like if CFO just maintain their lane allocations, they can just easily shift this game into Baron stages of the game and force it into a straight-up 5v5, which Frank Esports don't really have a superior composition in that scenario. For Frank Esports, I need to see some picks going on to Restway. He cannot be allowed to split push and pin Kurt down. You have to kill him.
Well, Frank has got to know that they need to make a few moves here. Otherwise, they could just keep falling further behind. Despite having a lot of kills early on in this game, they haven't really been able to control the tempo because CFO have just been a little bit better at it. Rest, decent lead for him. Pretty big CS lead as well, keeping that in mind out of this lane.
Yep. We had a lot of roams coming in from Kurt where he didn't find the assist, so naturally he will fall behind after the roams. And this is an interesting look by CFO. They're basically artificially creating a winning lane by just shadowing Lee Sin 24/7 around Mission. And meantime, they already have a naturally winning one with Rest. Koala should be completely fine here. But we are starting to go into those more 5v5 oriented scenarios. And unless Frank can find a good charm, I don't think the stun is enough. You really want the walk back effect from the charm in order to find those kills.
Yeah, that's going to be big. And if they can chain it, that's one thing. But you do see that Holo is definitely got that win condition on his mind. He's charging those up, not necessarily knowing that there's somebody right there. And then the moment anyone gets within sight, he goes for it. Spectral Ball doesn't quite reach far enough, unfortunately, so he's not going to be able to find it. And yeah, I mean, this holding pattern favors CFO. They're perfectly happy to just keep farming up the side lanes. And Frank, they're going to get spotted on that ward. Good coverage here by CTBC flying Oyster.
This is exactly what we need to see from Frank, but really good outplay here by Rest. He charges onto Kurt directly.
Holo taking a couple of tower shots, looks for the Heartbreaker, and oh no! He's got one! And they're gonna get two. Mission cleans it up. Oh, that was disastrous for Frank Esports. Pretender looking for an opportunistic snipe, completely whiffs the charm, and that'll be the end of that.
Rest just outplayed that so damn hard. Frank had the right idea there, but if you look at Rest, he's going for the full sustain, full side lane split push build. He has so much extra HP by dealing damage, by getting the Immortal Shield Bolt and the Bloodthirster Shield through that Frank just couldn't punch through. Like, they didn't even really need the Victor to come down. That was just a straight up 1v2 that Rest was able to handle.
Oh yeah. So, CFO very much in the driver's seat this game with a 4,000 or 3,500, I should say, gold lead. Controlling a lot of the jungle, lots of vision invested there for them. Let's see this replay again, because it starts with Rest going on to Kurt, but he takes it immediately with a level disadvantage, and then Holo just runs through tower range and goes for an early Heartbreaker, and Rest just blows him away.
Yeah, he needed to go in with the Heartbreaker just to get across the minions for the stun, but even when the stun landed, it wasn't enough. He was tanking tower shots, he was tanking minions, and just the build from Rest is extremely tanky. Like, he's getting true grit by starting the fight early there as well. Really smart move, a good understanding of Graves' mechanics to make that happen. He kites back to tower afterwards. He just plays that like a pro. It's a straight 1v2 outplay here, and he also just wastes the timing window for the Herald to actually take any effect from Frank Esports. So, as I was saying, top lane is the most important, and they really need to think about what to do with Rest. I think their answer is, hey, we can play 4-1 compositions and have Rest build solely for the side lane split push.
Yeah, and it's working out. Kurt will be able to finally take down the tower in the top, and look at this, CFO trying for a cheeky, sneaky Baron, I should say. With only 2 members, do they have enough damage to do it? They're really showing face. This is actually not been sniffed out by Frank. They have to know something is up by not seeing the jungler. The spidey senses are tingling here. Gemini going to wrap out and around, but actually Rest is still doing it. Oh man, give these guys an Oscar for this performance.
Gemini acts like he's caught red-handed, but I feel like Frank have to know that something is up. There's no way that Gemini alone was taking the Baron. Okay, now they figure it out. This is going to be a full
It's down to
tournament.
4,000. Do they commit?
They have to.
No, they don't. No, they're out. They're out.
Oh, sorry. I meant Frank. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Very fair. I mean, that was almost brilliant, but they're going to get something for it all the same. Kurt, Hextech ultimatum, but will he be able to walk it out here? Body blocking, and ooh, so close, he limps away. I can't believe Frank didn't lose a man there.
Yeah, that was pretty aggressive from Shun as well, but also quite smart, because once they get the 5v4, this Drake is up for the taking, and they can force CFO into a definitive Dragon Soul fight before Kurt even gets the 3 items. Like, Camille, before she gets the 3 items, it's not really reaching her full potential.
No, not at all. Ooh, Eminem. Thanks to Laser. Frank now are the ones looking at Baron. They already spent a couple of teleports just to get into position, but this is pretty heavily telegraphed, and in fact, it's not even being started as they just look to secure vision. CFO aren't biting.
Nope. Yeah, they know this one isn't really going to go down, and to be honest, I think if you've seen Frank games, they typically do play in a very careful manner, so I wouldn't expect them to chance a 50-50. Like, if this was in the LPL, I would say, oh, you have to have a word in there. Against Frank, I think it's okay.
Yeah. So CFO get completely unpunished for all of the shenanigans. They also managed to get almost a kill, and definitely 2 teleports and a dragon. So Drake stack is another thing that Frank have to keep in mind right now, is it'll be a 27 and a half minute soul that they have to fight for. Mountain Soul won't help their chances in this game if it's on the enemy team. Ooh, Charm almost connects, but Pretender is gonna get booted back. Let's see if he's got fancy enough feet to dodge the damage of the rest of this one. Koala looking for a chase. Gemini low, staying alive. I don't believe it. Rest is able to take down Holo. Holy moly.
Oh, such a beautiful outplay coming in from Gemini right there. He gets out of the Everfrost, gets the kick back in, forces the flash. Pretender survives, but Holo isn't so lucky as he tries to save the rest of the team. There's only 3 members around with no smite, so CFO take this one for sure. This is kind of crazy. Despite how good of a start Frank Esports actually got, I felt like they made a lot of mistakes and just not playing greedily enough for Kurt. Like, they should have hard focused Kurt, make sure that he could leave his lane whenever he wants to, make sure that he could win his lane. But they didn't do so. They actually just kind of fell for the tower trades that CFO lulled them in. We're going to watch this play again. Gemini, most critically, goes in with the ward hop before the Everfrost can even land. Takes a bit of seconds right there. Gets the slowdown and nearly jumps in for the kill as he also finds a second Q. Fortunately enough for Gemini, he also gets out because Rest Body blocks and Koala gets the knock up in.
Yeah, that was brilliant team play here, and Pretender, man, the moment he got Insect, I'm like, oh, he's a dead man. He somehow gets away from it, but only just. And CFO with the Baron on 5 cleanly here can just start to march down mid lane, push this one in. It's going to be hard for Frank to find a counter engage.
Yeah, Frank still do have another card to play, and that is their Jinx. She does have more range than the enemy AD carry on a consistent point with the fish bones right there, but she really needs to be at 3 items for that range advantage to actually be felt in most of these times, and Frank don't have the time. They have to go into the Mountain Soul sooner rather than later, as we do have it up in less than 2 minutes here. So we'll see if Eminem can critically get that Infinity Edge before he has to walk into the Drake pit.
Yeah, meanwhile, Rest is just pushing freely up topside, so this 4-1 is working wonders for CFO at the moment, and not a lot Frank can do. They haven't even really been able to peel CFO off this mid tower, and nobody's going to contest in the top. Backing away, oh, just a little bit of threat. You can see Pretender was getting completely zoned away. His charms were nowhere near landing, so they just lose both inners, and we're not done yet.
Yeah, no
Charm lands on Koala. Slow walk on this one. They don't find an answer. Gotta look for a pick. Shun slowed. That's it. That's all they got right now. This is looking dicey.
That was the last engage before Shun's flash even comes up. So I feel like CFO, they just maintain their position. And once Frank tried to charge at them, they'll likely win that fight and turn for the Dragon Soul.
Pretender and Holo just a little bit too low on the trade with Gemini. That's going to be the tower. Are they're just gonna lose out on an inhib here, and there's nothing they can do.
Frank, they actually need to pick their fights full back into full fight. They kind of thrown out ultimates piecemeal, and now they just put themselves into an ever worsening position. They just keep on giving things up. You really can't afford to do this.
Yeah, CFO just walk in and take both sides of the base. This is a free back. It'll turn into the Dragon Soul, and Frank need to fight. Otherwise, the game's just going to end. Infinity Edge does come up. Oh. This is the best chance they're going to have.
So what Frank needs to do in these situations is you need to make a big fight, and if you have surviving members, you're much closer to your own base, so you can still come back and defend. But if you just keep on taking steps back and you never try to put a front foot forward, then CFO will just take everything. So I'm a little bit disappointed. I feel like Frank Esports played way too passively, and sometimes being too passive can actually hurt you greatly in these types of situations.
As we saw, Kurt getting zoned out by Rest right now. He's already down to half his health bar, and oh dear, Rest is chasing on the side. Can they actually turn it around? They do find a Hextech ultimate, but look, and suddenly CFO just open on the opposite side. It's all a misdirect, and Frank are losing health bars and losing members fast. Kurt and Holo have already fallen, and the dragon was just a bait.
Rest doesn't need any cigar. He's still going to charge you down. Face plants into 2, doesn't matter. Has a sustain to cut through everything here. And there was an anti-heal coming on the build from Kurt here as CFO just charged down into the base. The draft was a little bit weird. The early game was super rough, but Rest simply outplays it all. He doesn't care. He's making a statement game here as the best top laner that we have in the PCS, and him alone can win you games.
And that has been proven true today. CFO take the win and give themselves a tie-break matchup for the 3rd seed in the PCS up against Deep Cross Gaming tomorrow. That will be our one and only tiebreaker, as with that loss, Frank will drop down into a locked 7th seed.
We do have our entire playoff bracket decided outside of CFO versus TCG. That'll be coming up tomorrow. Just once again, I feel like CFO, they have matured. They have found